The first episode of Reacher Season 2 begins in the Catskill Mountains, New York, 2 hours north of Manhattan. A chopper flies overhead and drops a guy out. He collapses on the ground, dead. Murfreesboro, Arkansas, AP, Jack Reacher is shopping at a second-hand store. He delivers his clothing to the store clerk, instructs her to wash and sell them, and prepares to buy the new ones he's wearing. She says it'll be $20, but he points to a sign that reads 50% discount, so it'll be $11. She claims her employer forgot to remove the sign, so he tells her he'll walk to an ATM across the street and get cash to settle the balance. Reacher stands in line at an ATM. A wounded and injured lady stands in front of him, frantically extracting cash. Reacher notices a vehicle across the street and suspects something is wrong. "Don't turn around, I can help you," he says to the woman. "Did you get carjacked?" She confirms, revealing that her child is in the backseat and that the man is armed. "This won't take long," says Reacher. He approaches the automobile and smashes the window through, using his jacket to cushion the impact of the shattered glass. He knocks the guy up, forcing his head between the car doors, and then grabs his gun from him, extracting the ammunition. The mother and her kid have been reunited. Reacher instructs her to contact the cops and hand in the ammunition. She inquires as to his identity, but Reacher departs, stating that he does not wish to become involved. Reacher obtains a receipt from the ATM and carefully examines it. He returns to the second-hand store and hands up $30 to the shop clerk. He claims he needs a new jacket since his old one is stained with blood. He also requests to use the store assistant's phone since he received a message from a buddy. Reacher then contacts Francis Neagley, a former member of the 110th MP Special Investigations Unit, which he supervised. The ATM transaction indicated that she had made a distress call, which triggered the call. She informs him that one of their previous team members, Calvin Franz, has been murdered and that he must travel to New York. Reacher adds, "Without hesitation, I'll let you know when I land." He then exits the store, handing the phone back to the shop clerk. Back in Time Rock Creek several years ago in Virginia, Reacher is dressed in an army uniform, and Calvin Franz comes to visit him and wonders why he is here. Reacher informs him that he saw him resolving an issue between two men and thought he had a good head on him and would fit in well with his squad. Reacher and Franz enter the 110th MP Special Investigations Unit's headquarters, a run-down room. The troop is joking around and playing games. Among those we see are Francis Neagley and David O'Donnell. Reacher confesses that the room they have is a shambles, so he orders everyone to relocate their asses and clean up the mess. Back in the present, in Williamsburg, New York, Reacher walks into a coffee shop and meets up with Neagley, who is waiting for him. As she watched his travel and arranged his arrival, she got him a hot drink and lunch. She is a private investigator who shows Reacher the files on Franz's murder. She informs him that he has been away from his house for a week. Angela, Franz's widow, contacted to inform her of what had occurred. They also had a son, it turns out. Reacher examines the images and concludes that Franz was tortured and thrown from a helicopter. Neagley inquires about the next steps, as she has attempted to contact other members of their team but has been unable. Reacher advises they go meet Franz's widow since they don't want cops handling their friend's murder case. Reacher observes a black Sudan automobile parked nearby as they leave the coffee establishment and becomes suspicious of it. A bald man with a notebook is introduced as a spy from the dark Sudan. Trevor Saropian, another suspicious-looking man in a sedan, is watching on. He calls someone and says, "She just met up with the big one," clearly referring to Reacher. From their automobile, Neagley and Reacher attempt to contact David O'Donnell. They leave a voicemail requesting that he return their call. Reacher and Neagley are visiting Franz's widow. Mikey, her kid, is watching television. His mother instructs him to go draw in the kitchen. Reacher requests that she guide them through the events of the day. Franz turned out to be a private investigator. He was out on business, and when she returned home, their home had been plundered. They inquire if she was aware of any cases he was working on, but she responds that he never brought work home. He'd seemingly ceased performing risky work. She believes that there may be anything in his office that might provide them with hints. She gives Reacher the keys. Before they leave, Mikey pipes up with, "You do not mess with the special investigators." Neagley asks Mikey if his dad taught him that. Reacher notices the black sedan parked outside the house. Saropian is coming out of a hotel on the phone with a man called Shane Langston, who asks him if the manager talked. He says no, but he pays off the concierge, who reveals that Neagley checked into this hotel under the name Sarah Connor and ordered adjoining rooms. Saropian asks Langston who Sarah Connor is. He replies that he doesn't give AS*T. Langston instructs him to keep a close check on the hotel as well as on Reacher and Neagley. Reacher and Neagley arrive at Franz's office in Three Rivers. They find it trashed, but Reacher believes it's an act of frustration since they didn't find what they were looking for. He discovers a photograph of the 110th. Neagley requests the keychain from Reacher. She claims Franz was astute, therefore he probably kept his valuables in a safe deposit box. She notices the US post office across the street and notices Franz has a mailbox key on his necklace. Reacher remarks on Neagley's intelligence. She is aware of it. They are outside the United States Post Office, which is closed because it is after 5 p.m. Reacher and Neagley have returned to the hotel. They catch up by playing cards. She claims to be doing well and has received 2 promotions at work. Reacher claims he has tried everything again with no success. Neagley asks whether he tried Dixon, implying that she and Reacher had a thing. He argues that nothing occurred since it was inappropriate because they worked together. When Reacher loses a game of cards, he chooses to retire to bed. He assures Neagley that he'll reimburse her for the hotel when his pension deposit arrives. Backstory: the crew is drinking in a pub. A uniformed man approaches them and informs them that they are not permitted to drink in uniform. He informs Neagley that she does not belong here because she is a junior in an officers' club. If she doesn't go, he threatens to haul them all out. Reacher takes a step forward and asserts himself. "We have 12, you have 9, the guy responds. Reacher retorts, "That's a shame, 3 short." A man is thrown out of a window moments later, and a battle ensues between both parties. The squad is drinking, playing guitar, and dancing around a campfire. Reacher instructs Neagley, "Do not mess with the special investigators." He claims he now knows they can all work together because of how they all stuck together throughout the fight, and he admits he organized it to watch how they all reacted. They pose for a group photograph. There is a strange dream scenario in which Franz approaches Reacher, beaten and injured, and asks, "They tossed me from a helicopter, Reacher, what are you gonna do about it?" A well-dressed man arrives at LAX and informs customs that he has come to sightsee and has nothing to declare. He burns his passport in the bathroom. Reacher and Neagley have returned to the post office. They devise a strategy to locate Franz's deposit box. Reacher will begin with the large boxes, but Neagley will serve as a distraction by engaging the clerk who claims to be a die-hard stamp collector. Reacher places the key in several boxes in an attempt to discover the correct one. An elderly lady alerts the clerk to the unusual activities, but Reacher arrives just in time, grabs the letter, and they go. They discover a flash drive but are unable to test it since Neagley's laptop lacks the necessary connector. Reacher claims that he needs a gun first and that he must first stop at a church.
You don't say.
At a church in a difficult neighborhood, he asks the priest for assistance in finding his cousin, who has a serious drug problem and lives on the street, and wonders where he could be. The priest offers him a place but warns him that stepping through there alone would result in his death. Reacher finds the street, drives over an addict, and headbutts him. He kicks another person, snatches his money and gun, and drives away. Back in Los Angeles, the well-dressed man meets 2 men who give him fresh passport identities. He then murders both guys since they now know too much. He then cuts one of their throats and stabs the other in the stomach before fleeing. Reacher returns to the motel. He notices Neagley, and they both enter the room, only to discover that it has been looted. O'Donnell appears and takes Reacher by surprise. He verifies that he discovered the location in this manner. O'Donnell is enraged at Franz's murder because he loved that kid, and he asks, "Who are we killing over it?" To get access to the flash drive, Reacher, Neagley, and O'Donnell attempt to guess Franz's password. They don't have much time to guess because time is running out. According to O'Donnell, it may be Reacher because he was Franz's hero. It is right, and they have been admitted. Under the identity Andrew McBride, the well-dressed man is booked on a trip to Denver. This name is on the list that the team retrieves from the hard drive. There are at least 10 names that begin with the letters AM. They realize they need extra manpower for the inquiry and proceed to find Swan, a member of their squad. The episode concludes with Reacher, Neagley, and O'Donnell hunting down and banging on Swan's door. When there is no response, Reacher breaks in and the squad explores the area. They discover his dog dead from dehydration, and Reacher believes Swan would never let a dog die from thirst, thus Swan is most certainly dead. They can't contact the rest of the crew, and with Franz proven dead and Swan presumably gone as well, O'Donnell asks Reacher what he's thinking. "I'm thinking there's someone hell-bent on taking out the special investigators, and they're coming after us," Reacher adds. Good. Atlantic City, the second episode of Reacher's sophomore season, takes off precisely where the first left off, with Reacher and friends Neagley and O'Donnell finding that a second member of their previous squad, Tony Swan, had been killed. Reacher, Neagley, and O'Donnell are leaving Swan's house, perplexed as to why the bad people haven't discovered them yet. Reacher and O'Donnell are difficult to contact, and they believe they haven't gotten around to Neagley yet. They decide to try again to warn the others, so they phone Sanchez and Orozco. The Black Sudan Reacher from the last episode has arrived at Franz's widow's residence. Reacher says he'll introduce himself, then walks up and kicks the front of the car, causing the airbag to deploy in the bald man's face. Reacher headbutts and beats the man who comes out of the automobile. Unfortunately for him, the man is Gaetano, Guy, Russo, an NYPD officer. The group takes off in their vehicle. Neagley warns Reacher that assumptions kill. Russo turns out to be the officer in charge of the investigation into Franz's death. They ponder leaving town and decide to go to Atlantic City to hunt for Sanchez and Orozco, who are based there. Langston is on the phone with Saropian, who tells him about the events involving Reacher and Russo. Langston instructs Saropian to keep their heads up. Reacher and the gang come upon Carla Dixon, a former member of the 110th who has returned to aid after learning that the organization is looking for her. She was working covertly on a corporate embezzlement investigation. They want her to rent a car using her bogus ID because the others can be tracked. Reacher informs her that Franz and Swan are no longer alive, and that Sanchez and Orozco are disappeared. In the 110th, Reacher and Dixon are discussing a case concerning missing aircraft in Afghanistan. Reacher compliments Dixon's work. She is an expert with numbers. She invites him out for a drink to celebrate, but he says he needs to finish his reports first, but maybe next time. The chemistry between them is palpable. Reacher, Neagley, O'Donnell, and Dixon are in the rented car on their way to Atlantic City. Dixon is investigating the case and the information recovered from Franz's flash drive. They suspect it's a vendetta against the 110th. Saropian is on the phone with Langston, who instructs him that when he arrives in Atlantic City, take him out. Saropian informs him that he needs some local talent to back him up, to which Langston agrees, but he demands that they be dead by tomorrow. Atlantic City, New Jersey, the gang inspects Orozco and Sanchez's office, which has been looted. Reacher claims that they are squandering their time here since whomever did this got what they desired. At the Lucky Lounge pub, he purchases a photograph of Sanchez with a lady. They decide to go because it's framed and plainly essential. Reacher and Neagley enter the Lucky Lounge, while Dixon and O'Donnell remain outside for protection. They show the bartender the image and disclose that they are Sanchez's buddies. He says he'll send someone out back to show them the books. He then orders a woman in the pub to collect her belongings and leave. This is the woman in the image. The woman runs away. Reacher and Neagley are walking to the rear of the pub with a man when he says, "This is as far as we're going. Stop messing with our pals," and a brawl ensues. While the battle is going on, O'Donnell and Dixon locate the lady down in the car, and they all cluster around the rear of the Lucky Lounge. They sit down with the woman, and she apologizes, saying she would not have bolted if she had known who they were, and that the other guys were merely watching out for her. She explains that a man had previously came in asking for Sanchez, but he had since gone dark. Franz was working on a case with Sanchez and Orozco, and Swan was also involved. The woman also claims to have heard 650 and 100,000 before he departed. The group at the casino believes it isn't someone with a vendetta. Sanchez and Orozco worked as freelance security for the casino, therefore they believe it had anything to do with gambling. When a waitress approaches, Reacher insists that she send him the casino's director of security right now. The group meets with the security director. He claims he has no reason to assume Sanchez and Orozco are dead because he only saw them last month and asks how he can assist. They ask him if the numbers 650 and 100,000 signify anything to him. He believes it is connected to a $650 million gambling fraud. He offers to comp them a room while he investigates. The gang settles inside the pretty opulent apartment. Dixon is caught card counting at the casino, and Reacher tracks her down just as she scores big. Security is upset and gives her concert tickets in exchange for her departure. Reacher assists her with her winning chips, and they leave the table. Saropian is watching the duo from the bar. Reacher and Dixon go for a late-night walk and discover they are being watched. Two men are following them, with a vehicle in front of them. They flee over a fence, and Saropian, along with the two henchmen, jumps out of the car to pursue them. They approach a warehouse that looks to be under construction. After being wounded by one of the henchmen, Reacher beats him up and pushes him off a cliff. Dixon dispatches the other henchman, but Saropian appears and attempts to shoot her. Before Reacher rushes on Saropian and attacks him, Dixon uses the henchman as a shield. He fractures his leg and drowns his head in a puddle of wet cement. They investigate Saropian's vehicle and discover information on the whole 110th. When they locate his phone, Reacher dials the most recent number. Langston answers the phone and inquires, "Is it done?" He informs Reacher that he's dealing with the wrong man, but Reacher claims that he's the one who sounds terrified. Langston hangs up the phone. Dixon recommends tracking the number, but Reacher believes they were both using burner phones. He believes they should have kept one of them alive in order to get additional information, as they had nothing to go on. Dixon, on the other hand, discovers a parking lot permit belonging to Saropian for New Age Technologies. It's a hint. They bury all three bodies in cement, and Reacher tells Dixon, "I'm thirsty. Would you like a beer?" Reacher and Dixon are in the hotel room, where he is bandaging his wounds. Reacher attends to Dixon's shrapnel wound once she shows it. They kiss and have sex after she removes her top. A vehicle is traveling over snow in a forested location 20 miles outside of Denver, Colorado. It's the AM alias man, and he meets with a man who claims that all 650 people will be in the truck and that there are two suitable ambush locations along the way, and he needs assurance that the truck driver will not be hurt. AM comforts him, and the man goes away. The following morning in the hotel room, Dixon and Reacher explain what happened last night to O'Donnell and Neagley. There's a tap at the door. It's the head of security, he says. Atlantic PD informed him that two other remains had been discovered in upstate New York near where Franz was discovered and had been there for some time. Sanchez and Orozco are there. The wounds match Franz's, and they prove that this is a New York case, not an Atlantic City one. The episode concludes with Reacher saying that he will need additional weapons for the struggle ahead. The third episode of Reacher Season 2 begins 10 days earlier. Langston stands by and watches as two of his goons beat up Franz. Langston says the pounding will stop immediately if Franz tells him what he discovered and who else knows. He also informs him that he got a beat on his pals in Atlantic City, Sanchez and Orozco, so not talking isn't going to save them. Franz spits blood in his face and remains silent. Langston breaks his legs and orders the henchmen to prepare him. Langston and his henchmen are riding on a chopper with Franz restrained. Langston gives him one more chance to speak. "I'm just thinking about what the big guy is going to do to you," Franz replies, laughing in his face. They eject Franz from the chopper. "Big guy?" Langston asks to his henchman. What the hell was he on about? Returning to the present, Reacher walks into a gun shop and informs the shop worker that he needs 3 burners and a load of firearms. The assistant informs him that he has a 7-day waiting time or that he may just obtain a handgun. Reacher pays him off in order to bypass a lot of hoops and departs with the weaponry he desires. O'Donnell complains about the Glock 17 Reacher has for him in the rental vehicle. O'Donnell likes his Glock 17, but Reacher reminds him that it must be a pistol that cannot be tracked. The group is deciding where to hide when they are stopped by a patrol cruiser pulling him over. "Wake me up if something happens," Reacher adds before falling asleep. He knows he'll be caught, but he expects it'll be a long time. Russo appears and instructs Reacher to exit the vehicle. He instructs Dixon and Neagley to handle the New Age parking pass issue, and convinces O'Donnell to accompany him to the station as his lawyer. Dixon and Neagley visit New Age Technologies. They speak with the Director of Operations, Marlo Burns, and inform her that there have been 3 confirmed killings, another missing person, Swan, and a person of interest, Saropian, discovered with a parking card issued by New Age Technologies on him. Marlowe claims there are over 1,000 employers, therefore monitoring is impossible. Reacher and O'Donnell are in a police interrogation room with Russo, and Reacher is curious about his presence. Russo claims they are interfering with the inquiry and tells him that everyone is working together to solve the killings. Russo considers it odd that the 110th had many calls to each other yet did not call Reacher. He affirms that it is due to his lack of a phone, but Russo is dubious. He inquires as to what he knows about the massacre of the 110th. If they give information with him, Reacher says Russo better have something for them. Dixon and Neagley are poring over a page of random numbers gleaned from their inquiry. There are 7 sheets in all. Dixon calculates that each page has 26 or 27 numerical tabulations. If you run them all together, you can fit everything on one page rather than 7. Except for one page, which contains 27, all of the pages have 26. There are months and days, with each page representing a month and 6 days of the week. They last 26 or 27 days and begin and terminate on working days. Something was meant to happen 9 or 10 or 12 or 13 times a day for the past 7 months. The stats are fantastic in month 1, but they plummet in month 7. What type of somethings were they keeping track of? Neagley is perplexed by Dixon's calculations, but she respects her judgment. However, it begs the question, what exactly is going on? AM has scheduled a trip from Denver to JFK, so they feel they can grab him as soon as he checks in. AM, on the other hand, is astute, and when he gets at the airport, he suspects something is awry. He knocks over the bag of someone he suspects is monitoring him, and nothing is in the suitcase, confirming his suspicions. He exits the airport and contacts Langston to inform him that he has been delayed, but that he will still complete the transaction, it will just take a little longer. Have you ever done a deal like this before for the product purchased? AM inquires of Langston. Langston says that he hasn't and wonders how AM is getting into New York without identification. AM says he'll take care of it. Reacher's party arrives at Saropian's house and throws a pipe bomb into his hallway, causing an explosion, and one of the goons ready to murder them to catch fire. So they headed to the hardware shop for it. When they enter the home, a gunfight ensues with the surviving thugs. They eliminate all of the henchmen. When Dixon runs out of ammunition while fighting one of them, O'Donnell saves her by killing the guy before he can kill her. Reacher notices a vehicle moving away from the scene and pursues it. He can't catch up to the automobile, so he gets imaginative and tosses a barbecue at the incoming vehicle. It grinds to a standstill. Reacher approaches the automobile and pulls a large guy from it. "Who sent you?" he exclaims. "What company do you work for?" "New Era." Brian Collins is the name he discovers on his ID. The man dies of a heart attack before he can tell Reacher anything. Reacher returns to Saropian's house and informs the gathering of what has occurred, telling them they must get the hell out. Reacher believes there are 2 possibilities here. First, the hitmen may have gone to New Age to canvass a target. In this scenario, the location they discovered may have been a forgery, or Saropian could have gone to New Age because he was operating as a hitman for hire and had an assignment to find them. In any case, someone intended him to use the address as a trap to murder them. Russo informs Reacher and the gang that they can no longer go renegade. He also informs them that AM did not arrive at the airport, but the plan appeared to be still in action. They are obtaining a warrant to get entry to the headquarters of New Age Technologies. He advises them to keep their distance till they hear from him. Reacher offers Russo a phone number so they may stay in touch, and Russo cautions, "No more cowboy shush." Russo then walks away. Reacher declares, "Saddle up, we've got a whole lot of cowboy shush to do." The episode concludes with Reacher and the group getting into a car and driving to the offices of New Age Technologies. Reacher instructs them to gather all they can in 2 minutes and not to wait for him if he is late. They all put on balaclavas and drive through the barricades into New Age Technologies. They take all they can and stuff it all into black bags. Reacher pulls a framed photograph of the New Age squad from the wall before departing. They hear sirens just as Reacher is about to leave. They start driving away, and Reacher leaps in the car barely in time. They pull over and light the balaclavas, while Reacher displays the photo he discovered at New Age on the vehicle. They see Swan in the photograph at New Age. In the photograph, he is flanked by Langston and Marlowe Burns. Reacher goes on to say, "He was working at New Age with the people who have been trying to kill us. It's logical for us to know that Shane Langston, Robert Patrick's New Age Technologies Protection Director and helicopter bodies tosser, is so determined in keeping Reacher and his people off their tracks, because it's Langston's henchperson Rolodex that's setting Reacher Season 2 with increasingly enjoyable fight sequences. Langston's assassination squad deployed to Atlantic City. Dixon and the huge guy dipped their bodies in cement. The Queen's home, staffed with New Age security and hired muscle. On that try, Reacher and his team entered into destruction mode, replete with an engineered explosive device, plus an improvised gas grill projectile. And in this episode, Reacher Season 2 Episode 4, a biker gang Langston must maintain on retainer for this type of thing gets their asses given to them by the special investigators. It's like 9 on 4, but that's irrelevant. Reacher doesn't even pause to listen to the leader's arrogant spiel. And he doesn't only use his renowned headbutt maneuver to destroy faces, he also uses his skull to demolish a guy's humerus, ulna, and radius. Whatever it takes, fists, clubs, and knives. Carla Dixon even pokes an MC man in the eye with the spiky heel of her shoe. That's right, Reacher and the special investigators accomplished all of this goon dispatching in formal attire, for reasons we'll explain in a moment. More importantly, the group's unplanned excursion to Boston leads to a reunion with Malcolm Goodwin as Oscar Finley. Reacher's departure from Margrave, Georgia at the end of the previous season to restart his roaming existence implied that we wouldn't see any of the pals he'd made there again. However, when the squad requires assistance, Finley Reacher reaches them. Margrave's head of detectives did not retire, but instead relocated to his hometown and became a lieutenant with the Boston Police Department. As a result, when the team needs to rely on the slimy legislative director of a senator with ties to New Age, they turn to Finley to make their lie about ensnaring him in a drug arrest appear genuine. Finley taking the man into custody, Reacher and O'Donnell dressed up as FBI agents it works, and provides a great precedent for Reacher to continue bringing back favored past players. Roscoe Conklin, are you still alive? The numerical data Franz left behind has been deciphered by the X-110 feet-ers. It's a total of all efforts. Only 1,547 of the 2,197 events were completed successfully, with a differential of 650, as in a 650 at $150,000. The records stolen from their vehicle B and E at New Age also linked a particular Senator Lavoie to a weapons project nicknamed Little Wing by the aerospace firm. In his private sector operations, O'Donnell frequently traps beltway operators in dirt deals. And his approaches are ideal for persuading the senator's legislative aide to speak with him. Dixon and Neagley, dressed in gowns, set their sights on Daniel Boyd, Kyle Mack at Boston Symphony Hall. Boyd is in a lot of trouble with Finley and the cops after a little bit of flirting and a little bit of implanted cocaine. Boyd sings to Reacher and O'Donnell about Little Wing, anti-missile software modified by New Age for use in shoulder-launched rocket launchers. Only because of that money did the aide and senator believe Little Wing would never fall into enemy hands. They were gullible, and it appears that Langston is now selling this lethal New Age technology to the highest bidder. Russo keep an eye on Gaetano, Guy, the NYPD detective, whose moves are getting, as they say, utterly fishy. It's difficult not to agree with Russo's supervisor, Lieutenant Marsh, Al Spienza, who tells him about the smash and grab at New Age technologies that happened before the detective could execute his hurriedly filed search warrant. And I bet it was the tin soldiers you were meant to be keeping your black eye on, Marsh yells at Russo, who then asks his boss to keep his voice down, which sounds daring, and says he'll make it right. Reacher is prudent to keep Russo in touch, but at a safe distance. He doesn't notify the investigator about the team's journey to Boston until it's too late. Even if Reacher is merely upset with Russo and isn't skeptical of his motivations, we are. What about the second loose end, the man only known by his nicknames AM? The swarthy chameleon executes a cosmetic surgeon in Denver so that he may steal his identity and go to JFK for his previously planned appointment with Langston. Reacher and his team have uncovered that New Age has a manufacturing plant in Denver, the type of site where top-secret guiding software and shoulder-fired rocket hardware may be combined. What is their strategy? Send Dixon and Neagley west to find the hardware, while Reacher and O'Donnell travel to Homeland Security in Washington, D.C. Reacher's late brother worked for Homeland, and he's hoping Joe's old contacts may assist the 110 feet-ers learn more about AM's genuine identity. When Langston's motorcycle gang mates corner Reacher and the crew outside a late-night eatery, it's this plot to separate the squad that's in the works. Reacher contacts Langston from the MC boss's phone after the beatdown, as the special investigators are shaking off the fierce combat surrounded by their rivals unconscious, shattered bodies. Dixon, frustrated, "I fucked up my shoes."
I can Reacher. Also tell you you die tonight. You said you were smart.
Before you ask, it is finished. Just not in the way you were hoping. Langston, who is typically smarmy, claims Reacher is causing a lot of trouble for his complex operation. And, while it's unlikely that the New Age executive would ever follow through on a bargain, he does question what Reacher would want in exchange for a halt to the henchperson slaughter. However, we already know what Reacher desires. And it's quite simple. "I want to throw you out of a helicopter."
Your friends were involved, then was big enough to get
Shane Langston, director of
Never get close enough to a senator to find out what he...
Out of the Sky.
New Age has two big...
I'm gonna swing by Homeland, see what they know about AM.
O'Donnell returns home with Reacher to inform his spouse and their kids that they will need to leave somewhere secure while the gang confronts Shane Langston and his henchmen. Neagley and Dixon are visiting New Age Technologies' Denver location, posing as members of the Defense Contract Management Agency in order to gain insight into their missile shipments. They realize they are far too late since all 650 missiles were previously delivered. In that vein, Reacher and O'Donnell contacted several federal authorities, who informed them that AM was a ghost, who constantly changed identities, and no one knew what country he was from. All that was publicly available was that he was a cold professional who would kill anybody who knew his face. AM pushed on receiving payments in bearer bonds, which the Treasury Department hadn't been using since the 1980s, to demonstrate how he left no data trail. As a result, he could transport millions of dollars in a suitcase. Reacher concluded this indicated AM was only going to make transactions in person, which provided an entry point. AM was in a tiny Indiana town when he told Langston he was on his way to Denver to obtain the bearer bonds. In Denver, Neagley and Dixon tracked down a cargo of 650 Little Wing missiles and launchers that have recently left the New Age Technologies manufacturing plant. Meanwhile, in Washington, Reacher and O'Donnell discussed the missing AM. With DHS agents Kareem, Abraham, Asto and Hernandez, Antonio Ortega. Homeland Security has his Azari Mahmood pseudonym in their databases, but not much else. He serves as a conduit, linking terrible actors with even worse instruments. AM's sole passion is money, as he has no recognized political or religious ties. And he favors bearer bonds, also known as unregistered financial instrument. The typical fencing could be checked to see who was transferring the bearer bonds. Reacher, on the other hand, may be there at the point of sale. It belongs to the bearer. Sir AM will not allow anybody else to deliver money but him. That is where he is weak. A squad of assassins dressed as truck drivers halt New Age's truck, murder the driver, and then tell AM that they have the missiles.
I think we got him.
Do me a favor, grab the manifest.
What's up, Neely?
Hell of a lot, actually.
When Neagley and Dixon catch up with the henchmen, they engage in a horrific shootout. Most of the guys are killed by Neagley and Dixon, but one escapes with the package. Before the cops come, Neagley and Dixon flee the site. In the meantime, Reacher and O'Donnell speak with a couple of Homeland Security operatives who formerly worked with Joe Reacher. They disclose that AM is a wanted person, and they've been attempting to find him with little luck. Reacher threatens to murder him if he arrives at AM before them. Reacher and O'Donnell are informed of the truck hijacking by Neagley and Dixon, who report that Swan has signed off on the cargo. Reacher refuses to believe it. Rewind to the 110th, who used heroin obtained from a narcotics bust to apprehend a dealer. Reacher and Swan are chatting to the drug traffickers while Neagley, Franz, Orozco, and Sanchez are waiting in a van. Swan is recognized by one of the drug trafficker's personal delivery boys, causing the 110th to execute the perpetrators. Swan sacrifices himself for Reacher. Back in the moment, Senator Lavoie's protection detail picks up Reacher for a private chat regarding him at the Smithsonian National Zoological Park. Lavoie and Boyd make fun of Reacher for posing as a special agent and remind him of his time in Margrave. Lavoie, on the other hand, seeks Reacher's assistance. He admits that he approved the Little Wing project for national security grounds and to make some extra money, but he now is seeking atonement after learning that domestic terrorism is on the cards. Lavoie wants the 110th to make certain that the missiles are not utilized to murder people. While driving across Indiana, AM had a chat with Langston regarding the package and the 110th attack. Langston promises AM that the missiles will be ready for deployment by the moment that he arrives, and plans another assassination plot on the 110th.
Great, Mr. Reacher. Why? Because in Boston, I can only assume that means your old unit's back together.
Because a U.S. congressman got...
Bottom line,
If anyone knew you were involved...
keep my hands clean. Watch for red tape that does nothing. I don't want to keep you around. It proves that. You like that one will be able to prove that you were no one left doing all your friends.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not so jolly. They go back to New York.
Had my office make some
The
discreet.
launchers and the missiles.
Yep.
Wherever the weapons were supposed to go.
They're missing till they open it up on the other end.
So we have no idea where they got the fire.
It's empty. Based on the tracks.
Just watch on New York skies.
Up with Lundin software.
Reacher, O'Donnell, Neagley, and Dixon are among those who attend Franz's funeral. Russo is shown consoling Franz's wife and child, which irritates Reacher because Russo has no relationship to Franz or his family. Reacher and Russo dispute, with Reacher condemning Russo of being a corrupt officer once more. Russo insists on being there for Franz's family since he was once in the child's place. Russo also claims to have done a background check on New Age's personnel, which revealed that they are all filthy NYPD policemen from the 3rd
Forget
Precinct.
about your father.
Yeah, but well, you know, all former NYPD. Early retirement and the charges went away. But he's the only one that has military. With his background, for all we know,
You interview any of them?
good. Just like Tony Stay Dirty. First
Brother Calvin France to ensure uncertain hope of the rest.
Swan is the one exception, according to Russo, who was employed for his military expertise, which would be valuable to the terrorists. The episode ends with 2 snipers shooting at the funeral to kill the 110th.
Right, you two take the one on the left. As soon as they hear sirens, they scatter. You can do this. You're a great... Fuck this.
So you trust me now?
Square.
Neagley kills one of them, while the other one runs away. Reacher tries to chase him down on foot, but the shooter gets in a car. Russo picks Reacher up in a car and they chase him. They cause a crash, track him down, and Reacher interrogates him. The henchman reveals Swan hired him to kill the 110th. They take the sniper to the place where he was supposed to get his fees. As soon as he steps into the building, the place blows up.
These guys took a run at
The
us.
episode concludes with 2 snipers firing during the burial to assassinate the
Telling
110th.
me everything you know.
One of them is killed by Neagley, while the other flees. Reacher attempts to pursue him on foot, but the gunman escapes in a vehicle.
Are you supposed to meet him?
Russo picks up Reacher in a vehicle, and they pursue him. They cause a collision, chase him down, and question him.
Where everyone's sitting,
Swan hired him to murder the 110th, according to the henchman.
so we can...
They transport the shooter to the location where he was scheduled to be paid. The building explodes as soon as he goes inside. The 6th episode of New York's Finest, of Season 2 of the show, begins with the 4 special investigators brought back together on a playground not too far from the scene of the warehouse explosion that concluded the previous episode. In fact, we can see the emergency vehicle's lights reflecting in the cloud of smoke directly behind them.
But the guy was
They are
hired by
discussing the
Swan.
kind of explosives that the person who laid the trap employed. Nevertheless, everyone except their leader Reacher believes that person to be Tony Swan, a former comrade. Reacher restates, "I'm not going to assume Swan's dirty. Detective Russo stops by to inform them that the bomb building's analysis reveals a proficient saboteur, possibly with military experience, set the explosives. Additionally, the police have located the vehicle belonging to Marlo Burns, the CEO of New Age Technologies who, in Episode 3, ambushed the special investigators and, in Episode 4, ran away from her house, leaving it abandoned north of Manhattan. Russo tells the squad not to leave a trail of dead in their wake but declines to travel with them north. O'Donnell remarks, he looks like that irate, sour detective from that movie. Which one? Neagley queries. Everyone, says O'Donnell. The writer's room was empty at this late hour. Cut to our four heroes inspecting Marlowe's vehicle, which appears to already have a number of parking fines on its windshield. Reacher surmises that Marlowe probably went to a nearby convenience shop for a bite before figuring out where to get a ride. The crew sees Marlowe and her preteen daughter Jane on the convenience store's security camera stream right away, so it's not just Reacher becoming irritated. Not even do we get to witness them intimidating or bribing the young person working the register to share the footage. Reacher remarks that Neagley is not the squeeze-in type, despite the child's invitation to crouch next to him for a closer look at the grainy, low-resolution black and white screen. Besides, all she can see on the security footage is Jane's Nintendo Switch. Neagley believes that she may return to the Burns residence, locate Jane's gamer tag on a smart TV or other connected device, and utilize the IP address of the place from where Jane is playing to ascertain Jane's exact position. It seems reasonable and close to me. Reacher remarks that Neagley is not the squeeze-in type, despite the child's invitation to crouch next to him for a closer look at the grainy, low-resolution black and white screen. Besides, all she can see on the security footage is Jane's Nintendo Switch. Neagley believes that she may return to the Burns residence, locate Jane's gamer tag on a smart TV or other connected device, and utilize the IP address of the place from where Jane is playing to ascertain Jane's exact position. It seems reasonable and close to me. Despite Mahmoud's best efforts to wriggle out of the ticket, she is forced to run his license, which assures her downfall. By the time her operator radios her back, he has already stabbed her and told her that backup is on the way, that the license she had recently checked on matched to a victim of homicide. It's just another airball and lifeless scenario meant to bolster Mahmoud's shidil status. No matter how many cosmetic surgeons or policewomen we witness Mahmoud Shiv, Ferdinand, son of Ben Kingsley, can never quite make him a memorable, vile monster. At Casa Marlowe, the gang settles up, and Neagley gets ready to play video games all night long. That is, until Jane appears on the internet. Reacher complains, I can't believe people actually play this shit, while likely passing the lengthy bus ride reading a novel or gazing out the window at our wonderful country. Neagley warns Reacher that a first-person shooter may be his target. He responds, I am a first-person shooter. Then again, so are all of his pals. He declares that he will go to bed while Neagley operates the joystick. However, no sooner does he take himself to Marlowe's bed than Dixon enters the same rented boudoir and helps herself to Reacher's. She claims that she is anxious because she has been shot at so frequently and so recently. She takes off her blouse and climbs on top of him, albeit scaling would be a better term to use. She gives a half-hearted apology for breaking his frequently repeated sleep when you can guideline. Reacher claims that the rule isn't all that strict. That will be judged by her, am I right? Detective Russo, played by Domenic Lombardozzi, is going to have a huge episode this week. He pays Lieutenant Marsh a visit at his house to inform his former mentor that, as far as he is aware, in Episode 4, Marsh set up the special investigators to be slain by the motorcycle gang in Boston, obviously Toronto. Marsh was the one and only other person who recognized where they would be, and Russo didn't sell him out. Marsh disputes it until Russo brings up the events of 9/11 and informs his supervisor that by encouraging terrorism, he is sullying the greatest police force in the world. At last, Marsh acknowledges his remorse, admitting Russo he's been assured that none of the missiles changing hands while he looks the other way will be used in the United States. Because he was afraid that standing up for what was right would get him killed, Marsh accepted a payment to keep New Age Security Chief Langston informed on the special investigators' work, similar to how Russo's grandfather was slain for accepting a bribe. Marsh is portrayed by Lombardozzi and Al Sapienza, a veteran of both cop shows and The Sopranos, who chew through this cliché pile-up with more than competence. Returning to the Burns home, Reacher and Dixon forego the smokes in favor of a post-coital nostalgia for their time in the army. It's It's unclear precisely whose memory we've been viewing as the flashback begins with a close-up of Dixon and ends with a glimpse of Reacher in the present. This has been a problem with the flashbacks all season. We never quite know which member of the team is doing the remembering. With all of them save for Reacher now convinced Swan has betrayed them, there's an opening here for some Rashomon-style narrative trickery, with Swan behaving differently in the memories of different people. Showrunner Nick Santora has not availed himself of this opportunity. Reacher is not interested in the subjective nature of truth and the soft lie of memory, though it wouldn't surprise me if Reacher had read Marcel Proust on one of those long bus trips. In Reacher, the idea of a courageous, incorruptible, monstrous guy shattering bastards' hands or cracking open their skulls is fantasized. The freedom to possess nothing but a toothbrush and to be free from one's own monstrous conscience is the central theme of Reacher. In any case, the flashback depicts Reacher being let down by yet another authority figure, just like Lieutenant Marsh, Russo's mentor, had let him down. While he and Dixon are engaged in some sexually charged paperwork, Lieutenant Colonel Hortense Fields, their commanding officer, stops by the office and gives them the order to end Operation Kite Runner, the significant heroin bust the team has been working on for the past 2 years. A drug trafficking network within this command would bring shame to its top officer, a colonel who is set to get a promotion he has been waiting for a long time. Hence, the colonel has instructed the special investigators to end the investigation rather than tarnishing his reputation with a widespread scandal. All of the troops who have been implicated up to this point will only get light punishments. Everyone will be discharged with honors. The big fish that the special investigators chased will be free to keep pushing the envelope with all the resources and equipment the US Army has to offer. Reacher eats this garbage pill, but it won't take long for him to spit it back in the colonel's face, as we can see. Returning to the present, Reacher admits to Dixon that he has been considering the execution of Operation Kite Runner. For a split second, it appears like Dixon reads Reacher's unusual moment of introspection as an inquiry about whether they would continue to share a bed if the present relationship ends. She then switches to the type of pillow conversation Reacher wants, remembering who she is speaking to and expressing her gratitude for everything he has done for her recently as well as over the years. She will thus carry out the nasty task of murdering Swan when the time comes. Yes, that's right, foolish boy. Return to your slumber. Needley storms in, telling them she's located Marlowe and Jane in a house that's less than an hour away. When the team has Marlowe at gunpoint in the garage, Curtis, the buddy who has taken her in under the impression that she is running from an abusive partner, doesn't call her out until Reacher threatens to shoot him in the leg. The humorous chant of the moment is, "Shut up, Curtis." What a strange name Curtis is. I wish the team had come up with a less intimidating technique to approach Curtis because he seems like a successful homosexual man who is neither a weapons dealer nor a terrorist. Even yet, they continue to operate on the presumption that Marlowe, whom Curtis was hiding, was a member of the plot that has been dislodging their old allies in the 110th, in spite of Reacher's many cautions against making assumptions. Marlowe subtly collaborates with Reacher to attempt to figure out why so many of the little wing guiding chips that New Age was producing were being returned as defective, and she succeeds in persuading him otherwise, possibly because she maintains that Swan was a decent man and Reacher still wants to think so. Thus, they may be written off and sold to Mahmood for a cool $65 million under the table. Marlowe claims that she only agreed to give over the bag of cash that Dixon and Needley discovered at her home in order to persuade Langston, the crooked security head for the New Age, that she wouldn't cause trouble for fear of his hurting her and her kid. She phones Langston at the team's request and makes plans to meet him in a location chosen by Team Reacher that is conducive to an ambush. To keep the child safe, they must first place Jane in Russo's custody. The location Marlowe assigned Langston for their rendezvous turns out to be a bus and semi-truck parking lot, exactly the kind of isolated yet treacherous area where a Reagan-era shoot 'em up, or a 2020 streaming tribute to movies from that golden age, would come to an end. After Reacher and Needley enclosed them, Dixon and O'Donnell had taken up positions on the upper deck of an open-top tour bus with the intention of killing Langston and his goons. It is understandable that Langton doesn't see this as a setup right away, but he quickly comes to that realization when Russo phones Reacher to inform him that he and Jane are escaping automatic-wielding shooters as they are pursuing at a high rate of speed. Reacher leaves Russo alone to deal with Langston and his 3 yeggs, ordering the other 3 of his allies to go aid Russo. After that, there's a hilarious scene of Batman-style ninja skills where Reacher, who the show had reminded us was 8 feet tall and 300 pounds, a few scenes earlier, somehow manages to hide his Chevy Suburban-esque bulk inside a passenger bus, effectively allowing him to surprise, disarm, and kill 2 gunmen who go inside looking for him. As though he were Pennywise the Clown from Dickies, he pulls the third under a passing truck. But Langston escapes him when he's saved by many other shooters on a chopper, which Reacher, another massive target, bursts from cover to shoot it ineffectively with his handgun. This man is brilliant, until he acts like a complete moron. Furthermore, with Dixon, O'Donnell, and Marlowe in the car with her, Needley is somehow pursuing Russo's somewhat ambiguous instructions to intercept him. She makes it to Russo's unidentified location just in time to take down the final shooter. The child is secure. Russo, however, cannot be held in the same light as he valiantly covered Jane's escape despite taking 2 bullets to the chest. The honest police officer raises his bleeding hand and quietly begs Needley to accept it. This is a character trait that she frequently reiterates and is even more basic than her love of video games and sugary cereal for breakfast. Needley hesitates a beat before grabbing the dying man's hand and giving it a forceful squeeze. It's the most moving scene in this ridiculous series thus far. Jack Reacher hasn't been the same figure viewers saw in the Prime Video series' first installment for the entirety of Season 2. He's still a monstrous man floating across the universe, utilizing his size, among other things, to make things right. More than his brother's murder, the killings of his former colleagues in the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division impacted him. He was their commanding officer, but he's not his brother's keeper. Reacher comes full circle in, the man goes through, and ultimately regains his power. It will be necessary for him. Even though Reacher owes his deceased colleagues a duty of care, he finds that collaborating with the 110th Special Investigators Unit's surviving members is very unsettling. After avenging his brother's death in Margrave, it's reasonable to presume that Reacher has had some off-screen experiences in the 2 years following Reacher Season 1. This indicates that he's accustomed to being the most knowledgeable and adept operator in the space. He has been humbled by working with Francis Needley, David O'Donnell, and most importantly, Carla Dixon. The relationship is different now that he isn't wearing the rank of command on his chest and isn't their commanding officer. The squad nevertheless obeys Reacher's commands and looks to him for leadership in spite of his subtly unclear actions. The viewer is shown why as Episode 7 concludes the flashback narrative that has been a part of Season 2. In the previous episode, New York's Finest, a flashback revealed how the investigation into the 2-year cocaine network on base was ruined by U.S. Army officer politics. In what's the longest flashback segment in Season 2, Reacher and the 110th Special Investigators violate instructions and launch a full-on attack on the operation regardless. Reacher, however, speaks beforehand about the repercussions they will encounter, which include losing their status and being put on routine or, worse, hazardous duty assignments. He's not just trying to stop heroin from spreading across the base and the neighboring community, though. And we'll be making sure the criminals hiding behind the name of the US Army can't do so with impunity, he said. There isn't another sentence that so succinctly captures who Reacher is, always, as a soldier. Though he's not quite by the book, he is prepared to put his life and the lives of his unit at danger to defeat some of the domestic adversaries that his oath of enlistment mentioned. First, it depicts the 110th Special Investigators going to battle and all of the profound, enduring bonds that accompany it for the audience. Secondly, it presents Reacher as the platonic ideal of himself. He offers the criminal warriors an opportunity to give up. The 110th executes the 2 who don't in self-defense, and captures the 1 who flees. It may be said that the civilian buyers are sent out with extreme prejudice. Reacher's commander stops their celebration, the unit singing a tune Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3 fans will know. This marks the conclusion of the unit and the beginning of Reacher's existence as a vagrant. Reacher appears to be back to his best in the scenario that follows the flashback. It's not like Reacher and Dixon slip into a police-guarded hospital room with ease. Rather, what demonstrates it is what he says to the lone survivor of the squad that murdered Detective Russo. He threatens him while grabbing him by the throat. You yell or make noise, I'll cut your trachea open, and your final thought will be, holy shit, he really did it. Reacher has finally returned to his Season 1 levels of humor, swagger, and violence. Regretfully, this sequence is also among the least strong ones in the program. While it's not inimical to Reacher's persona, it's an action movie mainstay that's best left dead. Reacher murders and tortures the victim. Though the fallen police officer would not be appreciative, he does it for Detective Russo. His desire would have been to prosecute and imprison a hitman who felt at ease taking the life of a child. And the moment before the memory was another piece of payback Russo would never have approved of. Reacher visits Russo's lieutenant in order to interrogate him. Reacher gives him the option to turn himself into the police in this instance. He chooses not to take that chance, and in self-defense, Reacher murders him. Naturally, Langston would have dispatched another hitman to finish off Grant the hitman. Neagley recognizes him, demonstrating that the author's grasp of realism transcends the military. She observes that the doctor, strolling along the corridor, has a roll of paper tape on his stethoscope, something that nurses usually do not carry. This sets up another action scene that strains the bounds of credulity. Not because of how it turns out, but rather because Reacher and Neagley escape detection or identification. By stealing the contracted killer's phone, Reacher manages to make a mocking call to Langston. Langston is able to deliver some of his own mocking threats this time. Reacher's only opportunity to free O'Donnell and Dixon now that they are both in custody is to give himself up. Even if Reacher buys himself and the show a little more time, this would have made for a great cliffhanger for the final episode of Season 2. He claims that Neagley is dead, but he subtly adds that he is awaiting questioning from the authorities. Even though neither of these claims is accurate, Langston is persuaded nonetheless. Reacher has been tearing on Langston and his shady arms deal for the whole season. Maybe this is the first time he truly outwits him. Additionally, he has the ability to request assistance from the dubious senator whose murky actions broke the law and produced the weapons Langston intends to sell to terrorists abroad. Naturally, Reacher will give himself over to the bad guys in the hopes of keeping Dixon and O'Donnell alive. But at last, he's one step ahead of his enemies. As though sensing that some viewers would find Reacher's cruel tactics on Grant repulsive, Reacher provides a sequence that demonstrates how much worse the bad guys are. Although Langston's boys are torturing O'Donnell and Dixon, they are only doing it for amusement. O'Donnell isn't the finest combatant. He's a family man now, and he has more to lose than any special investigator. But when he's being battered, his bravery and wit demonstrate that he's just as tough as Reacher, Dixon, or Neagley. Even though he's not as good with a shot, his psychological warfare abilities are unmatched. Similar to Reacher, he is at his best in the flashback with his unorthodox combat style. Rather of confronting the civilian drug sellers head-on, he slithers beneath the Humvees, severing the victim's foot and pulling him out after he stumbles. The prolonged flashback emphasizes the 110th survivors' lack of heroism in addition to demonstrating their cohesiveness as a team. They appear to only take the lives of villains who truly deserve it while performing valiant deeds. In the midst of combat, they are brave and aware of the consequences of disobeying commands they believe to be immoral. They hunt down the bad guys, Reacher in particular, battling and surviving like superheroes. But they resemble the Punisher more than Batman. Reacher is happy to serve as judge, juror, and executioner when it comes to exacting revenge on those who killed his friends and relatives. Furthermore, he lacks the will to stick around and accept responsibility for the destruction he causes. The real struggle starts as Reacher approaches the Season 2 finale. Fortunately, Reacher is at the peak of his abilities rather than feeling uneasy about his developing relationship with Dixon or his comrades passing. He enters the New Age facility with a swagger in the last seconds of the show, preparing for what promises to be an exciting climax against Langston and his guys. As the episode commences, Langston has two of the former 110th Special Investigators, David O'Donnell and Carla Dixon, strapped to gurneys, which is how he prefers to prep victims for hello dropping. We know this because he has already killed 3 other former members of the 110th using this method. Reacher, who has surrendered himself to Langston and his minions as part of a desperate plan to free O'Donnell and Dixon, is relatively mobile, only his hands are restrained. Surveillance photos don't do you justice. Langston growls, drinking in the Man Mountain with his naked eye at last. We know that Neagley is just outside the fence, with 2 New Age security guards headshot in her crosshairs. Let us extend Neagley the courtesy of believing the 2 guards she kills with rifle shots, and the one she drops with a pistol shot a moment later, are full partners in the murderous conspiracy to sell New Age's missile guidance chips to terrorists. Despite his tied wrists, Reacher uses head smashers, kicks, and most importantly, his all-American can-do attitude to take down 6 guys. Prior to Reacher finishing out these idiots by beating them with both wrists bound behind his back, Langston finds out that the only body that has been brought to the morgue since the hospital fight in the previous episode is Langston's goon's corpse. Which suggests that when Reacher told Langston that Neagley had also been killed at the hospital, he was lying to him. It seems logical that Langston would choose to gratify Reacher whenever the big man asks the whereabouts of Swan, if only to find out whether Swan, in his post-army existence as the #2 security guy at New Age, purposefully betrayed his old squad mates. Reacher was the sole member of the special investigators who hesitated to believe Swan would do this, even after the proof of Swan's culpability became compelling enough to persuade everyone else. Reacher's trust is verified when Langston removes Swan's remnants from a desk drawer, a jar with a chopped fingertip and a dug-out eyeball soaking in formaldehyde. Langton has all that he needs to bypass the biometric measures he established and fake Swan's fingerprint, retinal scan, signature, on different damning papers long after Swan is dead. Ingenious. Also, disgusting. Langston then attempts to force Reacher's participation by shooting O'Donnell in the leg and then instructing one of his yeggs to pull the bullet out. Sir, there's little for forensics to find. Yeah, that way, whomever looks into the deaths of O'Donnell, Dixon, and Reacher will conclude they fell from a helicopter due to natural causes. I believe Mr. Langston is beginning to feel the strain of attempting to keep a multinational arms-dealing conspiracy intact. Neagley's assistance arrives by parachute in the shape of the 3 unnamed private guards Senator Lavoie pledged to give to Team Reacher in the previous episode. 2 SEALs, 1 Ranger, as Lavoie described them. These are the same individuals that led Reacher to an unimpressive stand-in for the National Zoo in episodes 5. These 3 former soldiers coordinate their efforts with Neagley, who, despite her obvious preference for 90s rock, picks Jefferson Airplane's drug anthem, White Rabbit, as the song track for their assault on the building. As a result, Langston abandons his fellow soldiers and escapes into the helicopter that Dixon and O'Donnell have already been loaded into for the drop. Reacher uses a brad, a little office supply that was originally employed by societies from the 20th century to bind pages together so that removal was simpler than possible with staples, to break free from his handcuffs. The brad is hidden under the sole of Reacher's boot. Those bracelets had to have been a custom order, as the first season made it quite evident that Reacher's tree trunk wrists could not fit normal police handcuffs. He heads for that helicopter, burnishing his already spectacular kill total before jumping up to grab one of the landing gear wheels as it lifts off. Reacher's financial constraints have mostly been seen in the overtly Canadian feel of a season that is purportedly set in New York, Denver, Washington, D.C., and other American locales. However, the penny pinching in this episode and the first of the season becomes unavoidable when it comes to the helicopter stunts. It doesn't help that in 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout, the first screen Jack Reacher, a short, sub-6-foot Scientologist man, really did jump up, grab, and eventually climb a rope net dangling from a helicopter. It just doesn't have the same emotional effect to watch a blotchy digital doppelganger of Alan Ritchson cling to a digital chopper. Though the thug Langston sent along keeps beating Reacher's head, he does, dragging himself aboard and even managing to grasp the gurney with Dixon strapped to it with one arm once it rolls out the rear of the helicopter. The computer-generated action doesn't stop as Dixon manages to escape the gurney, scales it and Reacher like 2 ladders, takes out a knife that was stuck in Reacher's arm to prevent her from falling to her death, and uses it to quickly and easily murder the henchman. Reacher executes one of his tactics to eject Langston from the helicopter, just as he had vowed to do. With only minutes remaining in the season, and our big enemy is gone. Reacher, Dixon, and O'Donnell instruct the helicopter pilot to transport him to the location where Langston was scheduled to meet up with arms dealer Azari Mahmood, despite their numerous severe injuries. It's a farmhouse. The truck driver who attacked Neagley and Dixon in the 5th episode is with Mahmood when he arrives. Neagley opens the door and kills the driver with a headshot right away as the team replies, but the 4 special investigators who are still alive tell Mahmood to come inside and survive long enough to start talking about how he's simply a supplier and has no concern how the missiles he was going to sell are used. It's a relief that our 4 murderous heroes take Mahmood off stage permanently, firing squad style, as actor Ferdinand Kingsley has failed miserably to make the character remotely intriguing. The New Age engineer Langston brought out to instruct Mahmood how to implant the stolen guidance chips into his arsenal of shoulder-fired missiles hidden in a barn on the property is being held by Team Reacher, along with the helicopter pilot. On order for Neagley, who is amassing an incredible, sociopathic murder total this episode, to prove that New Age's chips are effective, Reacher seems to believe their claims of innocence and permits them to depart on that chopper. The three former soldiers Lavoie brought along don't reveal their real colors until she blows up that helicopter as her allies share a beer can. She then tells us, very helpfully, that Lavoie gave them orders to kill every last special investigator once the New Age goons were eliminated. However, Reacher had always been in front of them. At this moment, a SWAT unit is accompanied by Homeland Security officers Reacher and O'Donnell, who were previously seen in episode 5. The 2 SEALs and 1 Ranger instantly give up rather than trying to flee during another gunfight. It seems like everyone is exhausted. The Homeland Security official tells the group of 4 that they are free to go after they had just killed 4 extremely evil people in cold blood at that exact location. He asks Reacher what happened to the $65 million in bearer bonds that were meant to be exchanged at that farmhouse, to which Reacher responds, "What money?" and leaves with a briefcase in a visible place. I realized that I had no idea what bearer bonds worth $65 million looked like. For all I know, that amount may just be 1 page of paper. But clutching a single sheet of paper and entering a cafe in slow motion while listening to a song I can't pretend I recognized, Keep On Risen, by The Crutch, would not look badass for our bloodied but unbowed quartet. Better is the briefcase. Over breakfast and despite Reacher's unpersuasive priests, the 4 decide that Reacher should determine how to use the $65 million they had just appropriated. Reacher asks Neagley, his regular gravy train, for 2 pieces as a sign of taking on this obligation because jukeboxes don't take bearer bonds. It appears that some establishments continue to accept tiny change. Canada is one example. In order to start the montage of the different recipients of his renegade vigilante hobo largesse, all of whom lost loved ones in this bloody affair, Reacher cranks up another unknown needle drop, Beat the Machine, by Quaker City Nighthawks. These recipients include Franz's widow, Orozco's girlfriend, seen leaving her bar job in an expensive-looking new convertible, and Detective Russo's brother. The staff of an animal sanctuary is seen in this video appearing bewildered about how to manage an unexpectedly huge cash infusion from an unidentified benefactor. That evening, Reacher's followers congregate at Rockaway Beach, or so a sign says, to find out what rewards he has planned for each of them. Rich accounts have been set up in the names of O'Donnell's children to cover college and private school fees. Reacher has set up 24-hour in-home medical care for Neagley's sick father. For Dixon, his new roommate, he has set up a Delaware LLC that will finance any venture she chooses to do, whether it paint your own pots, forensic accounting, or private investigation. The episode ends with them taking another picture of the special investigators, who are now significantly fewer in number, enjoying another round of drinks around a vampire. All of them are drinking beer, with the exception of O'Donnell, who is continuously sipping from a 5th of Jim Beam. Let the man have a rest, he was just shot a day or 2 before. For the emotionally unstable Reacher, the final 2 tasks are more fulfilling. Come home with me, Dixon invites him as they say farewells in bed the next day following their last night together. I sincerely hope you get to meet my folks. She gives him a mean pause before declaring, I'm f***ing with you. Before she rides in the same taxi as O'Donnell to the airport, Reacher proposes another tryst. Reacher may possess a granite-like chest, but his heart isn't made of stone either. Using Lynyrd Skynyrd's Simple Man to highlight the final parting between Reacher and Neagley, who has always been the closest of his old friends, the season finale finally finds its feet. She makes fun of him for not spending their fortune on anything more than a $1,980 Trailways bus pass that allows them unlimited travel for a year. After murdering so many people, Neagley has become more emotionally open and brave enough to tell Reacher that she can no longer stand to see him just once annually or when one of them is in danger. She questions if he realizes that she and the other ex-special investigators are more than just his pals or his squad. Reacher remains silent. Only until a curious fellow passenger on the Trailways bus inquires about his recent activities does the large guy respond, visiting family. It appears that a man who weighs 250 lean pounds and is 6 feet 5 inches tall may still grow. I'm excited for the already revealed 3rd season.